Coming up on the next edition of Power and Politics, how events in the Middle East could upend the presidential race here as we wait to see who wins the argument over the Middle East mess. And the debate over the presidential debate goes on unabated. Why can't Trump and Harris make it happen? Hello and welcome to another edition of Power and Politics. I'm your host, Frank Cipolla. Power and Politics is a weekly right-down-the-middle look at the top stories affecting the state with a special emphasis on the psychology behind the decisions and issues that affect our lives. I am joined today, as I am every week, by my co-host, longtime practicing psychologist and the nation's Emmy award-winning political psychologist, Dr. Bart Rossi. Doctor, welcome.
Great to be here again, Frank.
Well, as you probably know, missiles are being lobbed in the Middle East as negotiators work frantically to end the war in Gaza and prevent an escalation that could trigger a regional conflict. Back home, the unrest in the Middle East could have an impact on the presidential contest right here. We start there. First of all, the psychology behind this. Are Americans really concerned about what's going on overseas? And who wins this argument? Trump has said he would promise a safer world. Harris really needs to sort of counteract that.
Well, Frank, you used the word a regional conflict, okay? If that happened, unfortunately, it really would be a plus for Donald Trump because he's going to say that he's the authoritarian personality who could make a difference. This is what is needed in the Middle East. It's his brain, his power, his ability. That's what he's going to say. On the other hand, if there's a peace accord now, if it happens, then that would help Biden, Harris, and therefore Harris going forward, especially, I think, in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, probably especially in Michigan where there are a lot of Palestinian Americans. So, yes, to your point, it could be a factor one way or the other. It's day by day right now.
Well, in defense of the former president, Ukraine was not a problem when he was in office.
Right.
Neither was the Middle East for the most part when he was in office. So he has an argument to be made. Hey, I kept things safe while I was president. Now we have two wars ongoing.
Well, he could say that, and he could actually take credit because he was the authoritarian personality. However, a lot of people also think that, and believe that things happen in the real world. They happen. And it should be up to the current president to resolve these issues, even if they can't. But at this point, the Biden administration with Harris would get a lot of accolades, let's say, if there was an accord. That's for sure.
Well, let me respectfully disagree with you. The United States support of Israel and what's going on in Gaza is what has Palestinians, specifically in Michigan and elsewhere, angry, as well as some younger students. You've seen the protests on campuses. There might be a way, and I know they're putting pressure on Netanyahu in the Middle East to get a deal done, but maybe he's waiting to see who wins the presidential election to see if he has a more favorable atmosphere here.
Well, yeah, to your point, though, I kind of agree with what I said and what you said, because internally in Israel, there's conflict. There's conflict there on what they should do. Did they go too far with the military or not? Did they handle this uprising and this terrorist attack correctly? Did they? That's a question.
It will be interesting to see which way this goes.
Yeah.
All right. Also making news on the campaign trail, the presidential debate scheduled for September 10th in Philadelphia. As of this taping, is still up in the air. Both candidates cannot agree on whether the mic should be left open or muted during the debate. This is so silly to me because there should be some sort of law that says you have to debate 2 times. This is the way it is. Every 4 years we go through this debate over the debate. It seems kind of silly.
I think on this one, though, I think the Harris team is playing a lot of psychology here. If I had to put a little blame here, I'd push it in their direction. But it may be good politics for them to do it because they're trying to say to the Trump team, listen, we're probably going to come if the mic is off or if the mic is on. But they really would prefer the mic on so that Donald Trump would make some mistakes. It's a little bit of a mishmash and a little bit of psychology that's really trying to get under Donald Trump's skin. Is it successful? I think it's political shenanigans at this point.
Well, I think the Vice President Harris, would like the mics on so she can sort of counteract what he might say and do what she did with Mike Pence back then. Vice President, I'm speaking,
right.
To show that she wants to be more in control. Conversely, I think Trump actually looked better with the mics off. He seemed more presidential listening in the first debate with Biden.
I think you're right, but I also think Harris doesn't care whether the mics are on or off. So
Then why not agree now?
I think there's a little bit of psychology being played here.
I think there should be some federal law that says every debate looks like this. It happens every 4 years.
That would be smarter.
So we don't do this again and again, which seems really kind of silly. All right, time now for one of our regular segments, a commentary from Dr. Bart Rossi that we call the Rossi Rant.
And Frank, today I'd like to talk a little bit about the psychology of states' rights, okay? Because what we're seeing now is this push that everything should be going back to the states, maybe because of the Supreme Court rulings, but the states decide. And a lot of people, well, I don't think the majority, but some people believe that you should just be able to elect people and then get people out of office if you don't particularly like what they're doing. So it should be up to the states. Let them decide. But for me, as a psychologist, I thought that we were the United States. I didn't think we were the divided states. I think that there should be some basic agreement between the federal government and the states on voting, on a woman's right to choose, on many issues that affect everybody. Certainly, each state can make a decision on a fishing license, a hunting license, roadways, businesses, whatever. Probably millions of things the states can do. But when it comes to basic rights and what we should all have freedom on, we should have unity. We should have the United States.
Good. Well said. Thank you, Doctor. All right. Coming up, Governor Ron DeSantis taking heat for a state board of education appointment just days before the appointee bombed out in a local school board election. We'll explain. That's next on Power and Politics. Welcome back to Power and Politics. I'm Frank Cipolla, joined by clinical and political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. 3 days after he came in last in the election for Broward County School Board, Daniel Fogan Holy has been appointed by Governor DeSantis to the State Board of Education. The appointment is seen as a workaround that keeps a political ally in the mix, even though he was overwhelmingly rejected by Broward County voters. Your thoughts on this, because I have my thoughts. I think we disagree on this one. You tell me your thoughts.
I think this is shallow politics, really. What I mean by that is that this is really the governor playing hardball, trying to get his right-wing person into the educational system. And I think it's really getting pretty ugly and unattractive for most people in the state. This is really an abrasive move by the governor. And I think it's not going to work well for him. I think this is another move where he's trying to pitch to the far right here in Florida, but at the same point in time, he's missing the boat with everybody else.
I would respectfully disagree.
Okay.
Point and counterpoint. I would respectfully disagree, and I'll tell you why. He is the governor of the state. We've given him that power. He has the ability to appoint whomever he wants, wherever he wants, and it might be political, but he wouldn't be the first governor to do so on a political aspect of appointing somebody that he likes or needs or whatever the case may be. He has that authority.
Okay.
So if he wants to appoint this gentleman who came in last in Broward County, Mr. Fogan Holy, then by all means he can do it.
I'm standing with what I said, okay, on this one, Frank. I really believe that, as we say, the optics here are just terrible.
The optics may be terrible,
okay,
but it's not illegal or unethical. It happens all the time.
It might be legal, but sometimes what's legal is not acceptable to most people.
All right. Another big issue this week, we're going to talk about the DeSantis administration looking to place golf courses, pickleball courts, and other amenities at several state parks. Environmentalists, of course, they're against the legislation. It's been opposed as the so-called Great Outdoors Initiative. Now, on the list right now for changes, if they are approved, are several state parks on Florida's East Coast and others in the Florida Panhandle and the Tampa Bay area. Okay, so he wants to put golf courses, pickleball courses, maybe tennis courses, whatever the case may be, in state parks. Your thoughts on this, the psychology behind it?
Frank, I think the psychology here smacks of money and developers. As you know, and as I've said here, I'm a golf nut. I mean, I am really pretty far out there when it comes to golf.
You are. He is out there.
I'm pretty extreme. But golf courses in the public park, no. It should not be. And pickleball courts, this is really where people want to go for the environment, for nature. This is a step backwards in a wrong direction. And again, we're really hitting hard on the governor here. But I think pushing this is really going against what most people in the state of Florida want.
We have a large state. It is growing. There'll be more golfers. There'll be
Right.
more people playing pickleball in my community. That's all they do 24/7. I think Naples, if I'm not mistaken, has a pickleball complex that has 64 courts.
Correct.
So, we are an expanding state. What if you took a little bit of a state park, 5% of it, and put some of these amenities? Yes, they would generate money, but at the same time, it would accommodate the growing population.
Well, I think this is, on this one, it's beyond optics. This is just not right. People are going to the parks. They like the parks the way they are. Having pickleball courts, they make a lot of noise. Having golfers playing out there, it changes the whole setup, the dynamic of the park. To me, it's really a step in the wrong direction. Parks should be exactly that, parks for nature. And we have plenty of reasons to build good golf courses in many places. It doesn't have to be in the parks.
Now, I'm going to talk about this in my commentary, which is upcoming, but Senator Rick Scott, Senator Marco Rubio, Agricultural Commissioner Wilton Simpson, the Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis, who's a potential gubernatorial candidate, Congressman Brian Matz, Congressman Matt Gaetz, Florida Senate President Kathleen Passidomo, all of them against this proposal.
Right.
It's an indication that, at least early on with regard to this, that DeSantis is pretty much a lame duck governor, and they know it at this point because
Right.
they're pushing back.
And as we have talked about here, the governor is not really looking to change. His pitch is really to the far right. I think he's believing somehow that he can attract those people a couple of years from now, maybe as he's thinking about going forward with another presidential run. He wants to pick his fights to pitch to a certain base.
But what base is he pitching to by saying we're going to put pickleball courts and golf courses and so on in state parks?
Well, he's attracting developers. He's attracting people who will support him and support his initiatives. And he will have those people on his team who have a lot of money when he tries to run again. So he's pitching to a base of very perhaps conservative people who are developers. He wants that team to be part of his constituency going forward.
But a lot of conservatives and Republicans in the state, as you probably know, like going to state parks, camping out. So it's something they enjoy, fishing and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he's appealing to that demographic, that voting bloc.
Well, he's thinking that he needs the money, the power, the wherewithal, and even though it's pitching to a smaller segment, he still thinks he can win on this argument. I don't think so. I think he's making the wrong move politically, but he thinks that he should remain very, very far right conservative, and I think he's going the wrong way here.
And we see some of that bipartisan pushback from
Yes.
the state legislature and elsewhere, even
Yes.
Senators Rubio and Scott. Right. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, the always fickle weather in Florida takes center stage as we see who enjoyed the sunshiny rays this week and who did not when we present the always popular segment, Sunshine or Showers, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back to Power and Politics. As you know, the weather in Florida can change in an instant. Sunshine followed by rain, then sunshine again. So with that in mind, every week we see who's up and who's down in a segment we call Sunshine or Showers. We start with the sunny day. Who is in the sunshine this week for you?
Well, Frank, this week, because of a Florida Real Estate Association, they have a publication out that lists Miami as the #1 city here in Florida for folks to move to. And it's really a big change from where Miami was like 10 or 12 years ago. This is really quite spectacular. There are 19,000 new units in process now of being built in the city of Miami. A lot of people are saying they like to go there for the culture, for the diversity, of course, for the beaches, for South Beach, for everything, and a lot of job opportunities. So Miami's looking good. Miami really is. We had Tampa, I think, last week in the sunshine. Miami has actually just moved up and away, and they're #1 in the state, and they're looking good. So
it is a vibrant city, isn't it?
It is very vibrant. I was just there a couple weeks ago, and I just had a great time.
Celebrating your birthday.
Yes,
which we neglected to mention.
Well, we had a good time.
Okay.
And who do you have this week? Who might you have?
It's always a surprise when he asks me. It's always a surprise. You know, Smart Asset did a survey, and they found out, along what you were saying a moment ago, Sumter County in Florida is the best county to retire 2 if you're retiring to. They did a survey of all the counties in Florida. Collier was number 6. Sarasota County was number 2. But Sumter County, which is the home of the Villages, which is that entire community, retirement community, it is the best place, according to Smart Asset, to retire if you're headed to Florida. Sumter County.
For economic reasons as well?
They did a whole survey of it, economic reasons, sunshine, so on and so forth, weather.
Yeah.
If you don't know where it is, it's just northeast of Tampa, and it is just west of Orlando. But Sumter County,
Okay.
number 1.
Where the Villages is.
Where the Villages
okay.
are, is in the sunshine for me.
Okay.
But, you know, I tell you something. I was out the other day. I was walking along with the dog, you know, and clap of thunder starts raining. That's how it is. So quirky, the weather in Florida. So with every sunny day, there are showers. Who was in the showers for you?
Well, we had some quick showers for Robert Kennedy, okay?
Robert Kennedy Jr.
Jr. I just didn't understand what he said at his press conference. I thought it was, as one journalist said, a lot of gibberish. He said that he was endorsing former President Trump, but he was also staying on the ballot so people could still vote for him. And it sounded like he wanted a position in the Trump administration for saying that he was going to support the former president. But the way he was speaking, I wasn't really quite sure what he was saying and what his role would be and what the impact would be. I just didn't get this guy at all. And I think that most people kind of feel the same way. And at this point, about his news conference, he certainly has the right to run for president and do whatever he wants and throw his support. But his news conference really didn't make it.
It was kind of confusing.
Yes. So, do you have anyone now for us in the showers?
I have Vice President Harris and Governor Walz in the showers, and I'll tell you why. We watched the convention. It was a party. There were disc jockeys and everybody. They used the word joyful dozens of times on television if you watched it. But I will say this. At some point, you have to sit down and be interviewed by a prominent member of the media, news media, or reporters. Thankfully, they have agreed to do so this week. We tape a little bit earlier. But, you know, eventually you have to sit down and answer some questions. All that joy and happiness and so on has to come with questions.
It can't be just happiness. You have to actually
Exactly.
do something.
Issues and
you
so on and
actually
so
have to
forth.
present as a real person.
Exactly. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a commentary by yours truly titled Let's Be Frank, when Power and Politics continues. Welcome back. American history is replete with comeback stories. In 1960, Richard Nixon ran and lost the race for the White House. He was further embarrassed when he ran for governor of California 2 years later and lost again. But he didn't give up. 6 years after that, he became president. Then Attorney General of Arkansas, Bill Clinton, ran for re-election after serving one term and lost. He regrouped, learned from his mistakes, and 4 years later became governor of Arkansas. 9 years after that, he was president, earning him the nickname the Comeback Kid. Both men did something that changed the direction of their political careers. They identified their shortfalls, adjusted to compensate, and emerged better, and you could say, more likable candidates. Comebacks in politics are possible. What we are seeing now, however, when it comes to the good governor from the great state of Florida, is an example of how it's not done. Ron DeSantis, who ran a woeful campaign for president and spent almost $300 million doing so, is the same uncomfortable on the campaign trail, know-it-all candidate he was when voters rejected him nationally. From all outward appearances, he has done nothing to make adjustments or work on his personality. Worse yet, as a lame duck, his one-time supporters, sensing blood in the water, have begun to push back or in some cases ignore him. And who can blame them? There are legislators in Tallahassee with big egos who have their own political plans, and distancing themselves from the governor is in their best interest. Earlier in the show, we talked about how leaders in the state legislature are no longer rubber stamping the governor's proposals. He must sense that his power is waning. But instead of looking inside himself to see how he can change in anticipation of a presidential run in 2028, he's doubling down with the old tired rhetoric and bullying tactics that got him bounced from the presidential contest this year, even before the first primary. I wish the good governor of Florida no ill will. Comeback stories are great copy for journalists like me. Who doesn't like the rising from the ashes story? But if the governor continues on course, he will become just another forgotten politician. If you're watching, Governor, It's not us, it's you. We'll be right back. That's it for this week's edition of Power and Politics. On behalf of my co-host, political psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi, and the people working behind the scenes, thanks for joining us. As always, we'd like to know what you think. Visit us at powerandpolitics.tv or email us at info@powerandpolitics.tv. See you again a week from now at this time and on this same station. Have a great week.